Hi, everybody. This is Steve DeVries with Of Nerds and Men, conducting my very first interview with my pal, Brian Williams. Brian Williams is both the worship pastor at my church and a good friend, and he has this concept that he has started. It's moved from concept phase to actually happening, and just in time from COVID, he has got this up and running. And it's called Restoration Church. And so I brought him on to talk about that, his vision, where he sees that going, and there's some unique aspects about this idea. Brian, welcome, and what can you tell us about Restoration Church?
Well, thanks, Steve. I could tell you lots of things about Restoration Church, I suppose. Depends on how deep of a dive you want to go with this. But Restoration Church actually started. The idea started 6 years ago. It has taken about 6 years for me to actually start working on it and start doing something with it. But it actually, yeah. So 6 years ago, I was at Founders. I grew up in Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids area, and I was at Founders, and I was having a beer because I think beer is delicious, and I hope other people do too. Some people think beer is too delicious, and so they have to stop with the delicious beer.
I
But
can see that.
I'm not. I'm not going for those people right now. So, um, what happened was I had an idea to start a church in a brewery. This was something that um, I had been thinking about for a while, and actually from the first time I had a beer, which was about the age of 26. I grew up in a Baptist church, and growing up in a Baptist church, you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to smoke, you're not allowed to go to movies, you're not allowed to go to dances. There's a lot of things you can't do. Now, I wasn't as strict of a Baptist as say my wife was, but there was a lot of uh, those notions on alcohol that um, I grew up with, that it was an evil thing, that you couldn't do it, that if you have one drink, you're probably going to get somebody pregnant, and you're going to crash your car, and all of these terrible things are going to happen if you have a beer. So I stayed away from it. It was sinful until I got out in the world and realized that lots of people drink beer, and not all of them are going to hell. And in fact, many of them were closet drinkers. I would say that were also in the Baptist church, but they they found ways around it. So um, it got me thinking and reading up on alcohol, and I decided for myself. Now everybody has to decide this for themselves. I can't tell you that it's right or wrong, but for me, this is something that is okay. I don't struggle with it. I don't have an addiction to it. It has its proper place in my life. And so I was 25, and I was down in Dallas, Texas for a worship conference. And that's where I had my first beer with a friend of mine. So I should say a quarter of a glass of beer. It was a craft beer. So it wasn't very much. But it was at that moment where, and this sounds stupid, but where God was calling me to use this as a platform for his ministry. And something I've noticed, I mean, I've been in ministry for a really long time, and something I've noticed is a lot of churches nowadays really want to have um, a a uh, a look to them that speaks like a brewery does. They want to have that feel. They want to have a culture of what a brewery has, where it's very communal. You can come in and feel welcome. And so I joined staff at the Tabernacle in 2014, so almost 6 years ago now. It'll be 6 years in the end of June. And I started playing at this bar in Buckley, which is where the Tabernacle is at. And I was meeting a lot of people there. I was playing music, doing all this kind of stuff, and making connections with people. People were interested in what we were playing. We would play some Christian music. We would play secular music. We would just play whatever we felt like playing. But there's always something different about the guys in the group. And so we started playing this music, um, and people started coming up to us and talking to us. And I made friends with a couple of the people, but I could never get them to come into the church building. As hard as we tried, as good as we made the church building look, as awesome as we made it seem, And it is awesome, the entire culture. I love the tab and everything that we've got going on there. But for some reason, for people coming into church for the first time, that's a huge step of faith to walk into the building of the church for the first time. It's incredibly difficult for them to do. Most of them might do it once and they won't come back. Not because they didn't have a good time, but I mean, if you have to work up your energy to try to get into the foot or get into the doors of the church and spend all that energy to do so just for one service, chances of you coming back are not likely. Chances of you coming back for more than 6 months is extremely unlikely. And so I see the building, and this is just my own personal opinion, so it doesn't reflect that of anybody else, but I see the building almost as a hindrance to people far from God coming into faith. And so I thought, why not bring the church to where people are already congregating, to where they're comfortable, to where they know this place. It's a part of their daily rhythm. Well, maybe not their daily rhythm, but at least a few days. Some of them their daily rhythm. Why not bring the church into that realm? And so we officially launched Restoration Church. We were supposed to have our very first meeting, church gathering on May 17th, but we're pushing that back to the fall, probably September. But we're going to do some stuff over the summertime, and that's kind of where it all started. So we've partnered with Right Brain in Traverse City. They're letting us use their space, and they've been really cool to work with. And they said, here you go, have the space for free. It's a community space, and do whatever it is you want to do. So, which is really key. I don't know how far you want me to go down this rabbit hole, but the free part was awesome because the model that we have set up, our financial model is a little bit different than most. So we're doing a financial model where all of our administrative costs, all of our overhead costs is what we call them. So you've got salaries, you've got marketing, you've got whatever it costs to run an organization, all comes from an overhead account that is funded privately and through a couple of fundraisers throughout the year. So we would do some, we'll have maybe a silent auction at some point in the year. We'll have something else at some other point during the year, just to try to raise the funds, the budget that we would need, because every offering that's taken. So I don't know exactly who your viewers and listeners are. If somebody doesn't know what an offering is, it's where you collect the money, and you give back to I mean, for somebody that wouldn't go to church, you would say you'd give back to the church. As a Christian, we don't give to a church, we give to God, but for lack of understanding for most,
right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So everything that comes in on a weekend service goes right back out into the community. So we have a community account and we have an overhead account. And on a weekend service, that overhead account doesn't get touched unless somebody specifically earmarked to give for that overhead account. Otherwise, everything goes right into the community account. So 100% goes right back into the community, both locally and globally. So I thought that was a cool model, and it's a transparent model where we have a budget year and we say how much we raised, and that's what our budget's going to be. We'll have some monthly givers and weekly givers that have been a part of this thing from the get-go that want to support the overhead of the ministry, but for most everybody, it's just their money goes right back into the community. So
that's awesome. So so September, it's pushed back to September, but you've been doing some little ministry things, some Facebook posts right along. Is that the plan to continue? And well, let's start with that. Is that something you're planning to continue through the summer?
Yeah. So every Thursday we have a message that typically I give, and they're about 35 minutes or so. So we're studying through, we're in a series right now called Game Changer, and you can go to our Restoration Church Traverse City Facebook page. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got a YouTube account, and we've got a website as well, restorationtc.com.
Okay, so I didn't say anything about plugging any type
of... I'm sorry. You can edit all of that out, Steve.
I didn't want to take this that far.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
We'll actually post links below so that people can click and go right there and check out what you're doing. So, are you planning on brewing your own beer? Are you planning on having just right brand beer or no right brand beer? Or I love beer, so I'm trying to, you talk
Yeah.
all about God and everything, and I'm like, well, what about the
Right.
beer?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. We would love to brew our own beer. We have a plan in place to be able to do that at some point down the road. Now, well, kind of. With Restoration Church, we also have plans to start a brewery that is a part of Restoration Church, but also not a part of Restoration Church. Financially, they're not a part of Restoration Church. The same people who would be running Restoration Church would probably be running the brewery as well. And so we're still in the fundraising stage of that. It's a lot easier to get a church off the ground and running. Um, Shockingly, than it is a brewery. There's no money that's needed up front.
Yeah,
So
I suppose. Where if
yeah,
you are more, two or more are gathered, then you're pretty
yeah,
much good.
exactly. Yeah,
And
you're
then
good
where you
there.
get
Yeah.
a license from the state of
Yes.
Michigan,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some
Yeah.
obstacles
Uh,
that you have
it
to.
takes a little bit longer. Yeah, but we're doing some homebrew stuff. We've got a friend of ours who is a fantastic brewer. Her name is December Lee, and she works for the homebrew store in Traverse City, U Brew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've got some of our beer on tap there. Actually, she and I made a coffee beer together, and we're doing some this coming Saturday too. So
That's awesome. I have to actually get over there. I've been waiting to have time to brew beer, and maybe that'll be one of my videos is how to ruin beer. We actually just found. I was cleaning out the garage and I found 48 bottles of beer that I brewed in 2012. That
yeah.
I had like one, and then I'm like, this is nasty, but I never got around to dumping it out, and so it's just been collecting dust. There's a skill level involved
Yeah.
that I do not possess. I think it's cleanliness, and that's next to godliness. I'm
Right.
far apart, so I guess.
Well,
Okay.
you've got, I mean, maybe it's aged for 8 years. It might be good now. You never
Well,
know.
I had my kids dump it all out, and I'm sure if the neighbors were
Oh,
watching,
man. Yeah.
that looked really fun. Like we were going through our own mini prohibition era of
Yeah.
dumping of aged wheat beer. But yeah, I gotta give it another try. But something that you said that was interesting is about going into the community, because as opposed to having those who might not step foot into a church. But really, I think there's a good biblical precedent for doing this. I mean, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when we look at what Jesus was able to accomplish during his ministry, he spent a bulk of his time outside of what they would call the temple in that time. He was out with what he would call the sinners and what we would call the sinners, because we follow Jesus. He was out in the world, making a difference in people's lives. And the interesting thing about Jesus is he would always meet people's physical needs before he met their spiritual needs. And so what does that look like for us as the church to meet people's physical needs as opposed to just their spiritual needs? And right now we're heavy on the spiritual need, and that's great, but we've almost got this mentality of, you guys come to us and we'll disseminate the information to you. And we've kind of flipped the model of what Jesus called us to do, is to go out and to make disciples, not have people come here so we can make disciples and then whatever. So it's an area,
Yeah.
and not that again, not that churches are doing it wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
And we equip people to go out and make disciples at the same time. But I think there's room for being creative and for doing things differently. And I think we can sometimes lack creativity in the church because we've got a model that works right now. Well, we used to, until we
Right.
until we were all shut down. But
Right.
we had this model that worked, and it's easier to go with a model that works. And so it's encouraging to see not just Restoration Church, but places all over the place that are taking risks and doing something much different than what perhaps we grew up in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
definitely for those that might not be your target. They might find it odd, but at the same time, would you? This isn't limited to non-believers, right? You also would
Oh
like
yeah.
everybody to come.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Any background is welcome to come. We need Christians. We need very strong Christians just as much as we need people who are far from God, because we're not just going to be able to disciple everyone ourselves, and we're not going to be able. I mean, we can cast a net, to use Christian speak, we can cast a net as wide as we possibly can, but without reinforcement, without help,
Sure.
we certainly can't do it on our own. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be wonderful if we had a lot of Christians involved as well.
Now, from a team standpoint, are there how many of you are there working on this project?
Yeah, we've got about. Do I include children in this,
I would
or do
absolutely.
I?
I don't know if children are of the kingdom of God. No, I
Yeah,
would
I don't.
absolutely include children in that as well.
We've got about. I think we could have about 30 people. With if everybody showed up at the same time, if all of their kids were there, it would be about 30 right now, I
Yeah.
would say. So,
Do you think do you plan on having will right brain be open for business during the church service?
well, potentially, yeah. So we're currently discussing like how all of that is going to look, and
Okay.
so um, for some of it, absolutely, yeah, right brain would be open. So for some of the things that we're going to be doing, you can come in, have a beer, listen to music, get some cool stuff, whatever. I mean, like do some giveaways, whatever. I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be a really fun atmosphere. So
Sure.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, I mean, thinking about that, we did a Bible study once at La Senorita, which, for those of you not around the area, is um, a Mexican restaurant, and they had a cantina that closed down, not because of us, but we had a nice Bible study, and there was 14 of us around the table, and it's a little bit of a witness when you see all these Bibles and
Yep.
22-ounce beers, and everyone's talking about Jesus. So I can imagine 30 people showing up into Right Brain, and
Yeah.
on a regular basis, people are like, hey, what's this all about? But they can't leave because the beer's good, and they don't want to leave because you
Right.
guys have cool T-shirts.
Yes, we do.
And I didn't ask you this, but do you have a T-shirt handy?
I should have worn it.
Yeah. I mean, you're
I
kind of
wore
cut
it.
off from the.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but um, I'll send you a picture of it.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, we'll post a T-shirt, and we're gonna purchase a T-shirt, and then we'll give away a T-shirt to someone who comments on this
Oh,
video.
perfect.
So
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. And anyway, the T-shirt is Beer and Jesus, and I think it's a great shirt. And so I think you'll see everybody wearing them next summer. Not this
Yeah.
summer because no one will go out this
No.
summer.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because it's
Yeah.
summer just around the corner, but it feels like I don't know what it feels like because we're all just stuck inside.
I know.
So on
Yeah, I
top
don't
of
know what it feels like either.
so on top of Restoration Church, you're also worship leader at um, the Tab. How's that been going? Doing things in kind of without people to sing with and.
Yeah. It's weird. It's really weird because I have gone to church my entire life. Like from the age of 0. Like, I think the week I got home from the hospital,
Born in the church. Gotcha.
I pretty much was born in the church. I think my parents had me. They didn't conceive me in the church, I
That's
don't
good.
think, but they did.
A water birth in the
I was,
baptismal font. Okay.
yes, yeah. Anyway, so I grew up going to church every single Sunday, and every single Sunday night, every single Wednesday, every Tuesday. Like, we were always at church. And this is the longest time that I have not worshiped with a congregation, since I've been born.
Yeah.
So that is really bizarre. And on top of that, I've been in full-time ministry now for almost 6 years. And then before that, I was volunteer ministry, which was almost full-time as well, every weekend leading worship and preaching, for about 10 years before that. So I directly involved in ministry for about 16 years. And to have nothing to do on a weekend is I don't know what to do with myself. We're getting done with so many home projects, and
awesome.
getting like, it's a positive, but just, I mean, singing to an empty room, you get used to it because you're singing to the camera and you're worshiping, hopefully just kind of preemptively with everyone else that's going to be joining you. But it's different. And I also hate Sunday mornings now, because I have to listen to myself.
Yeah, that's new.
And I don't really like doing that. So but everybody there, like, we've got a sound engineer who is making us all sound really, really good.
That's good. That's a challenge. Not because you're not good, but because the acoustics in the room don't always match the acoustics being recorded. And so
right. Yeah, we
good.
have a whole different process. So we'll go in and record on Thursdays, and then Matt, he's the guy who's doing all of our mixing for us right now for audio. He'll take that home to a studio, and he's got we multi-track into his laptop, and then he goes and mixes everything.
Nice.
It sounds
really
out.
good. I know you're your own worst critic, but we've really enjoyed it. It's kind of like you don't know what to expect. Worship through a webcam or something like that.
Right.
And, now you can tell a lot of thought was put into it. So as far as our family is concerned, and we're kind of odd normally, but I'm sure other families feel this way too. But we've really appreciated it. So anyway, well, hey Brian, thanks so much for talking to me and us about Restoration Church. Are there specific needs or specific people you need or anything like that we can?
Yep. We are. So the number one thing we're doing right now, we actually had our community account set up for a while now, and we've had some people donating to that. And so for the foreseeable future, at least until the end of May, we've got resources set aside for anybody that needs it during this whole pandemic. So we've got some funds set aside there. We're also doing something called the Meal Matchmaker, which you can find on our website. So basically, if there's people in need, if you're a healthcare worker, if you're a single mom, if you're a single dad, there was a spider that literally just fell and landed on the arm of my chair, and I didn't scream like a girl.
That's good. That was manly. That was you handled.
I'm going to go back and watch this when it's all done, when you post it, and see this nasty spider and see the fear in my eye. Oh gosh, that was crazy. Okay, so that was not a normal spider. That was gross. That was really gross.
We'll do counseling. We'll do counseling afterwards.
Okay, good. So we're doing Meal Matchmaker, and you might not want a meal from my house if there's spiders falling from the sky. But what we're doing is we're partnering with healthcare workers and all that kind of stuff. Anybody that needs a meal, maybe you're an overextended homeschool parent now, whatever that looks like. I mean, don't feel guilty about needing somebody to cook you a meal if you're just done and you don't have the funds to do it. Or even if you do and you just want a meal, we've got this thing online set up where you can fill out a form, tell us how many kids you've got, how many are in your family, if you've got any allergies, and set up a meal for you. So we've delivered, I think 7 meals now.
Nice.
And then
Nice.
we've helped out a couple of people financially as well. So, so we've got that on our website, and you can take a look at that. Right Brain doesn't have their own sound system.
Okay.
And so we are currently raising an extra $1,500. We've got a sound system, whole complete package from a friend of mine for about $3,000. So we just need to raise about 1,500 more, and we can get that sound system.
Nice.
So if you feel like you want to give to that, you can certainly do that. There's a link on our website at restorationtc.com to give there. And if you just want to give to the community account, then that's cool. So,
well, perfect. So bottom line, go to Restoration Church
TC.
TC.com.
It's Restoration TC. I think it's just restorationtc.com.
Restorationtc.com. You might end up donating to somebody else who needs it, though. So
that's right.
Anyway, just type in a random address, go wherever it leads you, and then give money.
Yeah. It is restorationtc.com. I just checked.
Restorationtc.com, where you can donate, or if you or someone you know is in need and could use some assistance. Restoration Church is already working, even though they're not in their final location. They are virtually started, up and running, and doing good things. And so that's awesome. Well, hey, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate your time. Doing this interview over the many miles. We live in the same town, but still over the 2.5.
It's like 4 miles, right?
Is it 4 miles? Yeah. Okay. Over the 4 miles that separate.
As the crow flies.
Right. Exactly. The hike. We'll have to do that one of these days.
That's what we need.
Actually, we don't want to do that. In Kingsley, if you cross someone's property, you might not make it through to the other side. Everybody's armed. So we'll just stick to the roads. But thanks for putting up with my interview and answering some questions. And we wish you the best of luck. We'll be praying for a Restoration Church and you and your family. And
thanks,
hopefully,
pal.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, I'd love to be on Of Nerds and Men, and you're hilarious. So,
well, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you, pal.
Yeah, bye.